Our next spotlight presentation is on the topic of the role of solid biomass in delivering renewable heat. We're delighted to be joined by Stephen Blewitt, who is the General Manager of Aurivo Co-op. Stephen has 26 years experience within the fast-moving consumer goods and agricultural industries. He has expertise in operations, sales, leadership, communications and business development strategies. And we are delighted that Stephen can join us today to present the Aurivo story from the point of view of their utilisation of solid biomass in delivering renewable heat. So I now hand over to Stephen, who will give his presentation. And if I could ask all of our attendees that are still viewing the exhibits, if you could resume your seats, that would be great. Thanks very much.
Okay, hi everyone. Don't have a full room, so I'm happy about that anyway. Less pressure on me. So I'm here to speak about the role of solid biomass in delivering renewable heat. Just this microphone. Okay. So who we are, we're Aurivo Co-op, and what we do, we're a 650 million euro business based out of Sligo in the west of Ireland. Although we're we deliver to 45 countries around the world, our heart is in the west of Ireland. We have 3 manufacturing facilities, predominantly in 2 of them are in Roscommon, where we use the majority of our thermal energy. That is in Ballahadreen, where we process 500 million litres of milk, and we produce about 150,000 tonne of animal feed. And then up the road in Donegal, we have a liquid milk production facility. So we are quite a large user of thermal energy, and that's the reason I'm here today, talk about wood chip in relation to that. So Aurivo's broken into 5 parts, as I touched on there. We've our dairy ingredient business, exporting to 45 countries. We've our consumer foods business. Our main brand that you might be familiar with is Connacht Butter, and we also do Connacht milk and milk for retailers as well. We've an animal feed business, we've 34 homeland retail stores, and we have 4 livestock marts around the west of Ireland. So we're owned by 10,000 shareholders, 1,000 of whom are milk suppliers, and we employ 650 team members in the west of Ireland. So sustainability in Aurivo is very important to what we do in Aurivo. It's embedded in everything we do. We like to think of sustainability from the ground up, from grass to glass, as we call it. So we're very familiar and have done a huge amount of research and work on our Scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions. Scope 1 and 2, we've made some fantastic headway on over the past, particularly since 2013 in Aurivo. And Scope 3, as we've heard earlier on in the conversation, a lot of work is needed in the years ahead in terms of assisting our milk suppliers and our farmer base in their Scope 3 emissions. Some of the successes we've had, we've an Origin Green Gold membership in 2022. We're heavily involved with Teagasc Signpost in terms of best practices at farm level, and we're the first liquid milk processor in Ireland to go fully biodegradable on our cartons of for our liquid milk products a number of years ago. Get this clicker to work. So our pathway to decarbonisation started 9 years ago in 2013. We've done a huge amount of work in Aurivo and are thankfully supported by our board and our farmer members and our employees. We've delighted to say that we've reduced our carbon footprint in our co-op by 40% in that 9-year term. And in the same time as that, we've increased by 85% the volume of milk that we've processed. So those are 2 quite staggering figures. Our milk throughput has gone up 85%, but yet our carbon footprint has gone down 40%. Some of the main projects behind that was biomass, which I'll touch on in a moment, green electricity, installation of heat pump technology in our liquid milk facility in Donegal, installation of LNG in our plant in Ballahadreen, and shortly the installation of biogas in our liquid milk facility in Donegal. So all that has resulted in a reduction of our Scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions by nearly 40%. So in terms of biomass, the reason I'm here to speak briefly on today, why we got into it and the thinking behind it. So back in 2012, our site was fully dependent on heavy fuel oil for all its thermal energy needs. Ballahadreen in County Roscommon, where we process 500 million litres of milk, isn't on the gas pipeline. The nearest point is about 30 kilometres from the site. It was back then and it still is. So we had decisions to make in terms of our carbon footprint from a sustainability point of view and from a cost point of view. We're totally dependent on heavy fuel oil. Over a 2-year period, we researched all the different technologies available, and we found that biomass was the one that we should go for. And between 2012 and early in 2014, we installed and commissioned a biomass boiler, which gives us 40% of our thermal needs. Between 2015 and 2018, it was new technology. We were back then and still are the only cooperative in Ireland, dairy processing cooperative, to be using biomass. So we had a lot of fine-tuning to do in terms of different processes within the business to get the best from the biomass. But we conquered that over a 3-year period. And thankfully, since 2019, it's been performing exceptionally well for Aurivo. Since then, we've optimized our steam system, and to move away from heavy fuel oil, we also installed LNG gas onto our site in Ballahadreen. Our plans for the years ahead in terms of biomass to do more of the same. We're looking at the expansion of the biomass capacity. What we have at the moment is only sufficient for 40% of our needs, so we're looking to extend that, and we're also looking at a CHP plant as well. So the 5 main reasons and the 5 big gains that we feel we got from biomass in Aurivo is, number 1 is risk mitigation. We're a global food company. We were fully dependent on heavy fuel oil, so in terms of our sustainability credentials and our name, we wanted to move away and move into the greener space. Security of supply, what we've seen in recent months has only really driven home that message. I have a short video later on in the presentation, and we'll see that our thermal energy needs, 40% of them are coming from predominantly within a 20 or 30 mile radius of our plant, as opposed to our processing facility and our 1,000 milk suppliers be dependent on fuel which is coming from abroad. So it gives us great security of supply. It gives us cost stability. And when we look over the 2013 to 2022 period, we won't lie to ourselves and say biomass has always been the most cost effective. It hasn't, but over the period it has been more expensive than other energy sources, and at the minute it is cheaper. But in terms of the stability, we know what we're paying with relatively little fluctuation for the vast majority of the time in terms of biomass. So there has been wins and there has been losses, but at this moment in time for the past year or so, it's been exceptionally good. The local economy, it provides employment locally, it provides an outlet for the forests in the Connacht region going into our facility. And then finally, emissions and sustainability. Back when we were looking at the project in 2012, I think carbon was trading at between €7 and €8 per tonne. So it's over 15 times that price now. So it, in terms of our sustainability, it's been a big win for Aurivo. So practical feedback, if anyone is interested in doing it, and I'd be more than available to take phone calls or emails later on or during the week. I would advise anyone considering it to follow an energy efficient design principles in everything they do, just because it's biomass and it's wood chip. It's very important in terms of the boiler partner that is chosen and the efficiency of the project from beginning to end. So a huge amount of homework was put in by Aurivo, and I would recommend that to anyone. Additional investment, it is more expensive to maintain those boilers compared to a gas boiler. It does need more regular maintenance. I would advise anyone to build in those costs as well to the the figures when anyone is potentially thinking of looking at biomass. Dust is an issue. We are an EPA monitored site. In the beginning, we had to put in dust mitigation measures. Has been sorted for many a year now, and we're fully compliant. But again, it's just a consideration that people burning gas don't have to deal with. Important to look at the life cycle cost analysis rather than a payback at a moment in time. At this moment in time, biomass would be a complete no-brainer, but I suppose it's important to, one would have to make predictions on where the price of gas is going to be into the future. So the whole life cycle cost analysis, including the maintenance, etc. And then very, very importantly is close collaboration with the suppliers. So we're quite lucky we deal with a company called Whirl in terms of our wood chip. We need it to be between 40 and 50% moisture. That's absolutely vital. So again, a secure supply at the optimum moisture level that suits the boiler that one has purchased as well is vital. So that's the practical feedback. In terms then of, I suppose, the other side of Aurivo, what we're looking at is on our liquid milk facility in Donegal, which is the second largest in the country. We're aiming to be carbon neutral manufacturing. So we'll be the first liquid milk plant in Ireland and the UK to be fully carbon neutral to PAS 2060 standards by Q1 of 2023. So it's a significant achievement for liquid milk in Ireland and for Aurivo Co-op. So that's something that's on the horizon. There's been a lot of talk earlier on today in relation to AD on farm level. It's something we are working with IRBA on in relation to a project, but we're also looking at the bigger pictures in terms of AD at farm level. But as we've heard earlier on, unfortunately, at the current level and the lack of support from government at the moment, it just seems that at this moment in time, to be a bit too far away for us without government support, so I'd be appealing for that if possible. But hopefully in time momentum might be gained through the renewable heat obligation and hopefully funding, hopefully we're expecting funding through the Repower EU scheme. If that was to come, I definitely believe milk suppliers and the wider farming community would definitely get behind the whole AD movement. So that's a brief summary. There's a video which probably will explain it a lot better than I have with some images about how biomass works for Aurivo and how the project has worked and the significant gains we've made with that. So if I hand back over to the guys. Thank you. In Aurivo, we process over 500 million litres of milk annually from our 1,000 valued milk supplier members. The majority of this milk is processed here in Ballahadreen into enriched milk powder and butter and exported globally to Southeast Asia, North America and Africa. As milk is approximately 87% water, drying this into powder consumes a large amount of thermal energy. On site here in Ballahadreen, we use liquefied natural gas, biomass, and also some heavy fuel oil. Sustainability on farm and in factory has been one of the main priorities of our co-op. And in the last number of years, we have reduced our carbon intensity by 60%. Our biomass boiler has been a main contributor to this reduction.
Aurivo installed this wood chip boiler back in 2013. It's a high pressure steam boiler producing 15 tonnes per hour, using 100 tonnes of wood chip per day when it's fully in production. This wood chip boiler produces 40% of our thermal energy for the site and contributes to a 50% reduction in our carbon emissions, which is 15,000 tonnes per annum, or the equivalent of 5,000 cars off the road. Aurivo is the only cooperative in Ireland using wood chip as part of its fuel supply. Woodland harvesting is contracted to supply wood chip from the local region to the site, and at the moment wood chip is being harvested 15 kilometres from the site. Locally supplied wood chip guarantees fuel security for the site as well as low cost energy efficiencies. The biomass boiler system is critically important to Aurivo for business continuity. particularly when one considers the volatility in fuel supply and the massive price increases for globally imported oil and gas.
At this difficult time in terms of global supply chain, it gives me great confidence to know that a large proportion of our energy needs comes from a very local source, rather than Aurivo being fully dependent on world trade agreements and what happens in countries thousands of miles away. The team in Aurivo Dairy have some great energy projects planned in our future strategy. On farm, here in Ballahadreen, and also at our liquid milk facility in Donegal. These projects will not only reduce our carbon footprint, but will help us to save money, to reinvest in your co-op, and help us pay the strongest milk price to you that we possibly can.
Thanks very much, Stephen, for your presentation and also for producing the video. That's very informative, and it just shows you what's possible in terms of decarbonising our heating sources through the use of solid biomass. So thanks, Stephen, for travelling down from the west of Ireland today to present to us here in Kilkenny. And as Stephen alluded to, we're working closely with Aurivo through our EIP project with the potential for a demonstration biogas plant on a dairy farm in one of the Aurivo farmers' farms. So we look forward to working with Stephen on that over the coming weeks and months.